STV's political editor Colin Mackay, the radio host Bene Briggs-McKinley and the businessman and columnist Donald MacLeod. We were loving the Trump dancing there, but down to some serious business now. We're going to go around the panel and just ask you to sum up in a sentence 2024.
It's been a year of change. You had two prime ministers with a general election in the middle. You've had two first ministers with a breakdown in the middle.
Okay, Bene.
I think it's been a very scary year politically, and there's lots of warfare around the world. I'm a bit worried. It was quite a scary year, quite tumultuous, lots of upheaval politically and with the culture wars. So it's been quite frightening for me.
Well, it's a year of promise, as they always start out, and it's been a year of broken promise, you know, from both governments, north and south of the border. To me, it's been very disappointing, but I'll still do my wee dance.
You carry on doing your dancing, and we will dig a little bit deeper into what you're saying there in just a second. But Colin, let's just start. A very dramatic year in Scottish politics. Isn't it always? Two first ministers.
Well, I mean, I think basically what you had was Humza Yousaf effectively sacked the Greens and then sacked himself as First Minister in the process. Yeah, then you had the Tories doing pretty much the same thing with Douglas Ross, effectively sacking a candidate and effectively sacking himself. I've never seen anything like that during the course of the year. But yeah, you could see Humza Yousaf's government crumbling and his leadership just crumbling as he was taken over ultimately by John Swinney. I mean, the thing is, I think Humza Yousaf may not be the best First Minister we've had, but you know, he's in the top 10.
Douglas Ross is probably missing you terribly, as he said in the clip there.
He made that pretty clear that I'm sure they're all going to be missing me on that basis. But you know, Douglas Ross is someone else that, you know, I've never seen actually someone almost pre-resign during the election campaign before they got absolutely gubbed in the election. Usually they have the decency to wait till after they've been gubbed in the election to go.
Bene, it's been some difficult times for the SNP. Do you think John Swinney is now steadying the ship?
I think so. I think after the beating that we got in the general election, I think he's united the party for better or for worse. He's quelled lots of many scandals have happened in the party. He's kind of quelled that, and he's united the party, shown Scottish SNP unity. And I think he can definitely, head the ship going into the future, and 2026 should be interesting.
OK, you're not a fan of the SNP, as we know from previous appearances, Donald, but have they done anything this year that you approve of?
I used to be a fan of the SNP, but not in recent times, and I don't think that. I think John Swinney's had it handed to him on a plate to steady the ship, as you put it, and he's not going to. It's been pretty easy, because look at what's happening with Labour down south. It's actually impacting on Sarwar's chances, in my view, up in Scotland. I mean, because the Labour government down south has come up with some atrocious policies, especially through the budget, and that's impacting in pensioners, it's impacting in businesses right across the UK, and that's where I think John Swinney doesn't need to do very much at the moment. He just needs to sit there and let it all evolve.
Well, that takes us on to British politics, of course. Sunak and the Tories out, Labour and Keir Starmer in, a new era. Labour is finding it quite difficult to govern. They've had their moments, haven't they?
The thing is, they promised change, and they delivered that on election night, with a massive win, 174-seat majority. They more than doubled the number of seats they had in the Commons. But I mean, it was after probably the worst election campaign I've ever seen, which came from the Conservatives. You saw in the film there, Rishi Sunak announcing the election in the rain. He was the only one in Downing Street.
We all felt for him, no matter what your
I've got a shiny jacket like
that. He was the only one in Downing Street without an umbrella. It was almost as if he took, not only did he take everybody else by surprise by calling the election for July, he seemed to take himself by surprise.
He was waiting in a lifeboat to come through.
But then you had the terrible campaign, the bizarre policy of threatening young people with national service, and then leaving D-Day early, annoying all the old people who, would perhaps some of them traditionally have voted for the Tories. So, I mean, it was the maddest campaign. I have to take an issue with one thing Donald said about, Swinney being handed things on a plate. I think actually what Swinney was handed to begin with was a hospital pass. His party was about to collapse. It's still under investigation by the police. He led them into their worst ever general election loss. I think what's happened is that since then, Labour promised that change. All they've changed is the name above the door. Since then, they've got things wrong. And tactically, he's played quite a clever game in the last few weeks and months.
Bene, what have you made of the Labour government?
I quite agree. I quite like the idea of national service. Don't knock it. I think it's a good idea for the young people. It gives them, something to do and gives them kind of, I don't know, pride in finding one's nation. I will push that idea because we have something similar anyway. But I think Labour has led with bad news. To start with, all the front-ended with all the bad news policies and all of that. So I think maybe Keir Starmer is trying to say, put the bad news in front now, and then maybe in 2025 come up with some new positive policies. Maybe that's his plan. I don't know why he's leading all of this. The winter fuel payment was a disaster, all of that. But yeah, I've not been very impressed, and I think it's blowing back on Labour in Scotland, and it's making the SNP look good by comparison.
Okay, let's park politics and just very quickly going to ask you all about the football, okay? Scotland, of course, crashed out of the Euros, but my God, Germany loved the Tartan Army. Didn't they, Donald?
Well, of course they do, but the Tartan Army bring the party, as they say, to wherever they go. But we were so disappointed, weren't we, back here at home? And I think Scotland just got absolutely hammered, when they were over there. I remember, I was reminded that I voted Steve Clark as my personality of the year last year. He won't be winning it this year, but I'll put him in the reserve. I'll put him in the subs bench for next year. We'll just see how he gets on. Because Scotland are beginning to develop, and the wee guy Ben Doak, he's absolutely fantastic.
Well, that takes us on to the nominations for the Person of the Year for this year. And before we hear from you guys, let's hear from two stars of stage and screen.
Okay.
Hello, Libby MacArthur here. The person I chose for 2024 was Alexei Navalny, because he died this year, and I really wanted to pay respect to someone who is so inspirational. His commitment to who he was and what he believed in, and his outrage at injustice was so absolute that he didn't waver at all.
Hi, my name's Elaine C. Smith, and I would like to nominate as my Person of the Year Gisèle Pellicot, the amazing French woman who's just gone through an unbelievable ordeal in the last few years. I think she's been a beacon of light to women across the world, and we should all take hope and take stock of what has been going on there and perpetuated against women across the world. So for me, that's a bit of light in the world.
Yeah, and I'm totally with Elaine on that one, I have to say. And Gisèle Pellicot's husband was, of course, sentenced to 20 years in a French court today. Let's look at your choices, though. Now, Colin, you have chosen the new leader of the free world, haven't you? Donald Trump, who won the American presidential election just in November. He'll be going to the White House next year. Bene, you did not choose Donald Trump, but you chose the person who was beaten by Donald Trump, Kamala Harris. And staying with the American theme, you've chosen the world's richest man, which I think seems appropriate for you, Donald. And Elon Musk, who's obviously a great friend.
And he's a genius.
Well, yes. First of all, why did you explain why you chose Donald Trump? Because of course, it's not the hero of the year; it's the person of the year.
Exactly, and I think I think you've got to remember, as you did in the film, that Alex Salmond died earlier this year. He was a once-in-a-generation politician from Scotland. But now you've got Donald Trump, who's going to be the next president of the United States of America. He's a twice-in-a-generation politician, 45th and about to be the 47th president of the United States. Now, it might not be what people in Scotland would have wanted. I'm sure they'd probably been happier with Benny's choice.
I'm a MacLeod.
But the people of America were the ones who were choosing, and they chose Trump. So, it's quite a phenomenon. He's a political phenomenon. And I would argue that he's probably more significant than Musk, because, he owns
Of course
Musk.
You would argue,
He owns Musk, doesn't he? Musk looks up to him.
You big up Musk incredibly, but let's just... Kamala Harris, you were so disappointed when she lost.
Kamala Harris was given just 107 days to run a campaign. People prepare years for these campaigns, and she put together an amazing team. They did great. She stood up in the face of disinformation. People talk about her race, what she brings. No policies. She had policies. She listed them all out. They said she had no policies, and she stood up for women's reproductive rights. All of that.
The Americans didn't want her, though, Bene.
They did well. she got, what, 75 million votes. Donald Trump got 77 million votes. So for a 100-day campaign, she did pretty well. And now she can do whatever she wants now. She can go back to Senate. She can become governor of California if she wants to be. She has lots of opportunities and options.
But what she wanted to be was president.
And she can run again in 4 years. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, the field is quite crowded. There are lots of stars rising in the Democratic Party, but she is giving young women...
Okay.
Sorry.
She lost.
She lost. And Elon Musk, you just think you think he's a genius, don't you?
I do. I mean,
Did you know, well, he's in charge of space. He's not in charge of space.
Hold on here. You know, we're all going on about the politics, and I know a lot of people don't like Musk. That's fair enough. But he is a genius. He's an adventurer. He is inspirational, aspirational. He. Sending rockets to space, but then bring them back down. He's put satellites around the world, Starlight. I'm not a fan of the electric car, but like Tesla, you know, they're everywhere. He's more than just a rich. He's a rocket man. He's a rocket man. But I argue with you that only on Trump, without his stability, without his business-minded focus, Trump, I don't think would have got there. I don't think he would have got there in the end. And I wonder what will happen when he comes over into the British political sphere. Now, that
reform and everything,
yes,
yeah, definitely.
Now, that changes the ball game, in my view, dramatically over the next 4 or 5 years.
We're running out of time, so very quickly come back.
I don't begrudge anybody their person of the year, but I think Elon Musk has the ability to get really people who are talented, and you know,
his legacy will last
he's
for.
not a genius.
His legacy will last for thousands of years.
He's a child with
guys,
resources.
we are going to have to leave it there. Thank you all so much for coming in. Have a lovely Christmas. Thank you. And that is it from Scotland Tonight for 2024. Thanks for watching. Good night, and see you in January. Thank you. And